What happens when you wait for your family for 2 hours and realize they were never planning to come? What happens when you sit alone in a crowded place, surrounded by laughter you cannot hear, music you cannot feel, joy you cannot share? On that Christmas Eve, Elena Mercer sat alone at a small table near the fountain in Millennium Mall, Chicago. She could not hear the holiday music playing over the speakers. The children shrieking with excitement as they ran towards Santa's workshop made no sound in her world. The footsteps of the stranger walking toward her, the stranger who would change her life forever, reached her only as vibrations she could not quite feel. She was 27 years old, and the world had been silent for her since she was 14. A fever had taken her hearing that year, not gradually, not gently, but all at once, like someone had reached into her head and flipped a switch. One day she could hear her mother's voice, the birds outside her window, the television playing in the living room. The next day, nothing. Just silence. Permanent, absolute, forever. Elena had adapted as well as anyone could. She learned to read lips with precision, studying the shapes mouths made the way other people studied foreign languages. She mastered sign language with the same dedication she brought to her illustration work. Her drawings had become her voice when her actual voice failed to reach anyone. Her long blonde hair fell in soft waves around a face that held a delicate beauty, features that seemed too soft for the hardness life had shown her. Tonight she wore a white knit dress beneath a pale blue wool coat. She had chosen this outfit carefully, spending an hour in front of her mirror, because her family had told her this dinner mattered. They wanted to spend the holiday together, they said. For once. The text message had arrived 2 hours ago. Family emergency. Sorry. 2 words. That was all they could spare for her. Elena knew there was no emergency. There was only the same tired shame they had carried since she became deaf. To her parents, her deafness was a burden, an embarrassment, something they mentioned in hushed tones when they thought she was not looking, though she was always looking, always reading their lips through doorways and across rooms. She had seen her father say it once, when she was 16. He was talking to her mother in the kitchen, not knowing Elena was watching from the hallway. Sometimes I wish things were different. He meant her. She was the thing he wished was different. Her mother had stopped learning sign language after the first month. Too difficult, she said. Elena would just have to learn to read lips better. Her older sister Victoria treated her like a child who could not be trusted with real conversations, real responsibilities, real life. And now on Christmas Eve, they had done it again. Left her waiting, left her hoping, left her alone. Elena's vision blurred, but she blinked it back. In her coat pocket, she clutched a Christmas card she had planned to give her family tonight. Inside was a certificate, proof that she had won an international illustration competition. Her artwork had been recognized by judges from 12 countries. She had imagined their faces when they saw it. Imagined them finally understanding that she was not useless, not a burden, that she had accomplished something real. But they had not shown up to see it. The card felt heavy now, a reminder of hope misplaced. She should go home, back to her small apartment with its silent rooms and lonely walls. But she could not make herself move. The thought of spending Christmas Eve in that empty space, surrounded by the artwork she created in solitude, was more than she could bear. So she stayed. She watched families walk past, mothers holding children's hands, fathers carrying shopping bags, couples laughing at private jokes. She watched and felt the familiar ache of being separate from a world that moved too fast for her to follow, a world that rarely slowed down enough to let her in. Daniel Webb noticed her because his daughter noticed her first. At 35, Daniel had learned to see the world through Lily's eyes. His daughter was 7 years old with the same blonde hair her mother once had and blue eyes that seemed too large for her small face. Eyes that noticed everything, especially other people's pain. She had a heart that broke easily for anyone who was hurting, a trait Daniel sometimes worried about and sometimes treasured. "Daddy!" Lily tugged on his sleeve, her voice dropping to a whisper. "That lady is crying." Daniel followed his daughter's gaze across the crowded food court. He saw what Lily saw, a young woman sitting alone, her shoulders curved inward as if trying to make herself smaller, wiping her cheeks quickly, ashamed to be seen. "I think she cannot hear," Lily added quietly. Like Emma at school. Something tightened in Daniel's chest. He knew what it felt like to be abandoned. His wife had left when Lily was 2 years old. She had looked at their small apartment, at his irregular income as a freelance electronics technician, at the life of modest struggle stretching ahead of them, and decided it was not enough. "I deserve more than this, Daniel," she had said. "I deserve more than you can give me." She had walked away without looking back, left them both. Daniel had spent that first Christmas alone with a toddler who kept asking where mommy was, and he had sworn he would never let his daughter feel that kind of abandonment again. He had raised Lily by himself ever since, working long hours, accepting help from their neighbor Mrs. Patterson when childcare was needed, building a life that was simple but overflowing with love. He knew what it felt like to sit alone during a holiday and wonder if anyone in the world cared that you existed. Years ago, before Lily was born, Daniel had worked at a community center. One of his co-workers was a deaf man named Jerome, patient, kind, always willing to teach. During lunch breaks and slow afternoons, Jerome had taught Daniel the basics of sign language. "Everyone deserves to be heard," Jerome had told him once, "even when the world refuses to listen." Daniel had never become fluent, but he remembered enough. He remembered the shapes his hands needed to make, the grammar that differed from spoken English, the way a simple gesture could bridge the gap between two worlds. "Come on," he said softly to Lily. "Let us go say hello." They crossed the food court together, weaving between tables and holiday shoppers. Lily held her father's hand tightly, nervous but determined. When they reached Elena's table, Daniel moved slowly into her line of sight, careful not to startle her. He watched her look up, confusion crossing her face, then something like weariness. She was used to strangers approaching with pity or curiosity. He could see it in the way she braced herself for whatever came next. But then Daniel raised his hands and began to sign. "Are you okay?" Elena stared at him. Her red-rimmed eyes went wide. Her lips parted in surprise. Nobody had signed to her in months, maybe longer. Nobody had bothered to meet her in her own language. Before she could respond, Lily stepped forward. The little girl raised her small hands, movements clumsy but earnest, and signed the words her father had taught her in the car. "Hello, my name is Lily. Daddy says everyone deserves to be heard." The transformation in Elena's face was immediate. She smiled, a real smile, the kind that reached her eyes and softened the tension around her mouth. She signed back carefully, making sure the little girl could follow. "Hello, Lily. My name is Elena. You sign very well." Something shifted inside Elena, a crack in the wall she had built around her heart. This child, this stranger's daughter, had learned to sign just to talk to people like her. Daniel signed slowly, his movements careful and deliberate. "If you have nowhere to go tonight, come home with us." Elena should have said no. She knew better than to trust strangers. Life had taught her that lesson over and over, that hope was dangerous, that kindness usually came with conditions, that people who seemed good rarely stayed that way. But there was something about this man, something about the way he looked at her without pity, something about the little girl who had crossed a crowded food court just to say hello in Elena's own language. "Please come," Lily said out loud, the words slow and earnest. "We have cookies, and Daddy makes really good hot chocolate." Elena looked at Daniel, searched his face for any sign of condescension or hidden motives, found only warmth and a gentle patience that reminded her of no one she had ever known. She nodded. They gathered their things and began walking toward the mall exit. Lily held Elena's hand on one side, bouncing with excitement as she chattered about Christmas and cookies and the tree they still needed to finish decorating. Elena could not hear the words, but she could feel the vibration of the little girl's joy in every step. Something unfamiliar stirred in Elena's chest. It took her a moment to recognize it as hope. Then the lights flickered, once, twice, and went dark. Emergency lighting kicked in after a few seconds, casting the mall in dim red shadows. The festive atmosphere vanished instantly, replaced by something darker and more ominous. Outside the tall windows, Elena could see the storm had intensified. Snow falling thick and fast, wind rattling the glass like something trying to break in. Panic rose in her throat immediately. Darkness terrified her, in a way it did not frighten others. In the dark, she could not read lips, could not see hands signing, could not know if someone was speaking to her or warning her or threatening her. In the dark, Ekudi, she was not just deaf, she was completely cut off from the world. She was 10 years old again, locked in a closet during a thunderstorm. Victoria had done it. Her older sister, 12 at the time, had shoved Elena into the closet and held the door shut from outside. Just a joke, Victoria had laughed through the door. Do not be such a baby. But Elena could not hear her sister's voice through the wood, could not hear anything except her own ragged breathing and the pounding of her heart. Just darkness and silence, and the growing certainty that no one was coming to help her. She had beaten on the door until her small hands bruised, screaming into the void, not knowing if anyone could hear her. When their mother finally found her, hours later, it seemed she had been angry at Elena for making such a fuss, rather than angry at Victoria for causing it. Your sister was just playing, her mother had said. You need to learn to take a joke. After Elena lost her hearing 4 years later, the fear became worse. Darkness meant complete isolation. Darkness meant danger she could not detect until it was already upon her. Now the mall filled with chaos she could not navigate. People pushing toward exits. Announcements over loudspeakers she could not understand. Bodies pressing too close, jostling her, separating her from... She lost Daniel's hand. One moment he was there. The next, the crowd surged like a living thing, and she was alone. Elena stumbled. Someone's elbow caught her shoulder hard. She fell, her knees hitting the cold tile floor, pain shooting up her legs. Around her, the world was a blur of shadows and movement and mouths she could not read in the dim emergency lighting. This was her nightmare made real, trapped in darkness, invisible, unheard. She stayed on the floor, frozen, her breath coming too fast, her vision narrowing until all she could see was a small tunnel of red-tinged darkness. Then a hand grabbed her elbow. Elena looked up, heart slamming against her ribs. In the dim emergency lighting, she saw a face. But it was not Daniel. It was a security guard, a large man in uniform, his mouth moving rapidly, his expression stern and suspicious. He was saying something, asking something, maybe accusing her of something. She could not tell. The shadows made it impossible to read his lips. She tried to speak, tried to explain that she was deaf, that she could not understand him, that she just needed to find her friends. But the words tangled in her throat, and even if they had come out clearly, she could not hear herself to know if she was making sense. The guard's grip tightened on her arm. He pulled her upright roughly. His mouth moved faster, his expression growing angrier at her lack of response. Then Daniel was there. He appeared from the crowd like an answered prayer, stepping between Elena and the guard, his body becoming a shield. She could not hear what he said, but she saw the calm determination in his posture, the way his jaw set as he explained something to the uniformed man. His hands moved at the same time, signing for her benefit even as he spoke. She is deaf. She is with me. She is not causing trouble. The guard's expression shifted from suspicion to embarrassment. He released Elena's arm, muttered something that might have been an apology, and moved on to deal with other concerns. Daniel turned to her immediately. I am sorry, he signed, his movements urgent but gentle. I lost you in the crowd. That will not happen again. I have you now. Lily appeared at his side, her small face streaked with tears that caught the red emergency lights. I was so scared, the little girl cried, wrapping her arms around Elena's waist. I thought we lost you forever and ever. Elena held the child close, felt the warmth of her small body, felt her own panic begin to recede like a tide pulling back from shore. Daniel's hand found hers again, firm, steady, anchoring her to something solid in a world that had been shifting beneath her feet for 13 years. Follow me, he signed with his free hand. I will get us out of here. The storm had transformed the parking lot into a frozen wasteland. Snow fell so thick Elena could barely see 10 feet ahead. The wind cut through her coat like it was made of paper instead of wool. But Daniel moved with purpose, leading them to an older sedan that had clearly seen better days, but was solid and well-maintained. He opened the passenger door for Elena. a small gesture of courtesy that made her throat tighten with unexpected emotion. When was the last time someone had opened a door for her? She genuinely could not remember. They settled into the car, Elena in front, Lily in the back, Daniel behind the wheel. He started the engine and let it warm for a moment before turning to Elena. "The roads will be bad," he signed. "It might take a while to get home. Are you okay with that?" Elena nodded. She was more than okay with that. The thought of returning to her empty apartment, of spending Christmas Eve alone after everything that had happened, felt impossible now, like being asked to go back to prison after tasting freedom. Daniel pulled out of the parking lot slowly, his hands steady on the wheel, his attention completely focused on the treacherous road. Through the window, Elena watched the city transform around them. Familiar buildings became magical under the falling snow. Streetlights cast golden halos through the white. The world looked clean and new and full of possibility. It was beautiful, she realized. She had forgotten that the world could be beautiful. Then the car hit a patch of ice. It happened in a heartbeat. One moment they were moving forward. The next, the sedan was sliding sideways, spinning toward the opposite lane where headlights were approaching fast. Elena's heart seized in her chest. She grabbed the door handle as Daniel fought the wheel, muscles straining, his face tight with desperate concentration. He pulled them out of the skid just in time. The car came to rest on the shoulder, tilted slightly into a snowdrift. The engine still running, the wipers still fighting against the accumulating snow. But otherwise, complete stillness. For a long moment, no one moved, no one breathed. Then Lily began to cry softly from the back seat. Small, frightened sounds that Elena could not hear, but could see in the shaking of the little girl's shoulders. Daniel turned off the engine. His hands were trembling against the steering wheel. Elena could see them shaking, even in the dim light. He took one breath, then another. Steadied himself with visible effort. He turned to Elena and signed, "I am sorry. That was terrifying. Are you hurt?" "You kept us safe," she signed back. "That is what matters. Thank you." From behind them, Lily sniffled loudly. "Daddy, are we going to be okay?" Daniel reached back to squeeze his daughter's hand. "We are okay, sweetheart. We just need to get the car unstuck. Everything is going to be fine." He looked at Elena again, hesitated as if weighing whether to say something. Then he reached out and traced words on the fogged windshield with his finger. "Sometimes I am afraid that I am not good enough. For Lily. For anyone." Elena stared at the words slowly fading as the fog reclaimed the glass. This man, this stranger who had rescued her from loneliness, who had shielded her from a security guard, who had navigated a blizzard to bring her somewhere safe, was afraid of the same thing she was, that he was not enough. She reached out and wrote beneath his words, her finger leaving trails in the condensation. "I understand. I have felt that way every single day for 13 years. Their eyes met in the dim interior of that cold car. Snow piled on the windshield, muffling the world outside. And in that small space, surrounded by silence and storm, something passed between them. Recognition, understanding, the beginning of something neither of them had words for yet. Daniel's apartment was on the third floor of a modest building in a working-class neighborhood, the kind of place where neighbors knew each other's names and looked out for one another, where Mrs. Patterson from down the hall had a spare key and always seemed to have fresh cookies when Lily came to visit. The apartment itself was small, a two-bedroom unit with furniture that had seen better days and walls that could have used a fresh coat of paint. But as Elena stepped inside, she did not see poverty or struggle. She saw love in every corner. The walls were covered with Lily's drawings and school projects. Photographs of father and daughter smiled from mismatched frames. A small Christmas tree stood in the corner, half decorated, ornaments scattered on the coffee table as if they had been interrupted mid-celebration. "Welcome to our home," Daniel signed, his expression almost shy. "It is not much, but..." Elena shook her head and signed back. "It is warm. It is real. It is more than I expected tonight." Lily ran to her room and returned dragging a thick blanket, which she carefully draped over Elena's shoulders with the serious concentration of a child performing an important task. "You are cold," she announced solemnly. "You need to be warm now." Elena pulled the blanket tighter around herself. It smelled like laundry detergent and cinnamon, like being wrapped in a hug. Safety settled over her like the blanket itself. Daniel made hot chocolate, 3 mugs with the steam rising in lazy spirals. They sat together near the Christmas tree, and slowly, gradually, they began to decorate it. Lily hung ornaments on the lower branches, chattering happily about where each one had come from. Daniel helped with the higher ones, occasionally translating his daughter's stories into sign for Elena's benefit. Elena arranged decorations with her artist's eye, creating balance and beauty from the random collection. A piece she had forgotten existed settled over her. Eventually, Daniel picked up a notepad and pen from the coffee table. "You do not have to tell me anything you do not want to," he wrote. "But if you want to talk, I am here. I will listen. Or watch, I guess." He added a small smiley face at the end. Elena laughed. The sound surprised her, strange and unfamiliar to her own throat after so many months of silence. But real. Genuine. She took the pen. "My family was supposed to meet me tonight. They promised this time would be different, but they canceled at the last minute. Again, they have never accepted my deafness. To them, I am broken. An embarrassment, a burden they wish they did not have to carry. Tonight was just the latest disappointment in a lifetime of disappointments." Daniel read her words, his expression growing serious. Sad, but not pitying. Never pitying. That distinction mattered more than Elena could express. He wrote back, "They are wrong. You are not broken. You are not a burden. I have known you for only a few hours, and I can already see that. They have had 27 years and still cannot see what is right in front of them. That is their failure, not yours." Warmth spread through Elena's chest, something she had not felt in so long she had forgotten the sensation existed. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out the Christmas card, the one she had carried all evening like a talisman. She handed it to Daniel without explanation. He opened it carefully. Read the message she had written to her family, words of love and hope that now felt naive and painful. Then he unfolded the certificate tucked inside. His eyes widened. "You won an international illustration competition," he wrote, the words slightly uneven with surprise. "Elena, this is incredible. Your artwork was recognized by judges from 12 countries. Do you understand how amazing that is?" Lily bounded over, drawn by her father's excited expression. "What is it, Daddy? What did she win?" Daniel explained in simple terms that Elena had won a very important prize for her artwork, that people from all over the world had looked at her drawings and decided they were the best, that she was talented and special and had accomplished something wonderful. Lily's face lit up with pure, uncomplicated delight. She threw her arms around Elena's neck. "You are famous. You are like a real artist. That is so cool." Elena hugged the little girl back, her heart so full it felt like it might overflow. When Lily finally pulled away to examine the certificate more closely, Elena took the notepad again. "My family did not care about this. They did not even stay long enough to see it. But you, strangers I met 3 hours ago, you care. Why? I do not understand." Daniel's response came slowly, each word written with deliberate care. "Because some things matter more than blood. Because kindness should not be limited by how long you have known someone. Because no one deserves to be alone on Christmas Eve." He paused, then continued, "And because I know what it feels like to believe you are not enough. My wife left me and Lily 3 years ago because I could not give her the life she wanted. She looked at everything I was and decided it was not worth staying for. So I understand, Elena. I understand feeling like you will never measure up. And I do not want anyone else to carry that weight alone." The words sank into Elena like sunlight into frozen ground, reaching places that had been cold and dark for so long she had forgotten they existed. Her phone buzzed on the coffee table, breaking the moment. Elena glanced at it and felt her stomach drop. 17 missed calls from Victoria, 23 text messages. She had forgotten about the family tracking app, the one her mother had insisted on installing years ago, claiming it was for safety. The same app Elena had never bothered to delete because no one ever seemed to care where she was. Until now. The last message from Victoria read, "I know where you are. I am coming to get you." Elena's blood turned to ice. Before she could warn Daniel, before she could explain, there was a sharp knock at the door, demanding, angry, impossible to ignore. Daniel rose to answer it. Elena watched from the couch, dread pooling in her stomach. The door opened, and there, standing in the hallway with snow melting on her designer coat and fury blazing in her eyes, was the last person Elena wanted to see. Victoria Mercer. Her older sister stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, her heels clicking against the worn floor. "What the hell do you think you are doing, Elena?" Victoria moved through Daniel's apartment like she owned it, her eyes cataloging every worn piece of furniture, every secondhand decoration, every sign of modest living. Her lip curled with barely concealed contempt. "Running off with strangers," she continued, her mouth moving rapidly as she paced. "Disappearing without telling anyone. Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is? The whole family has been worried sick." That was a lie. Elena knew it was a lie. Her family had not been worried. They had not even bothered to show up for dinner. But before she could respond, Victoria turned her attention to Daniel. "And who exactly are you?" Her voice dripped with disdain that Elena could read clearly in the shape of her mouth, the tension of her jaw. "Some random man who found a vulnerable deaf woman and decided to play hero? She cannot even understand what you are saying. She is helpless, broken, a burden that my family has been carrying for 13 years. Daniel's expression did not change. He moved to stand beside Elena, his presence solid and reassuring, and when he spoke, his hands moved at the same time, signing so Elena could understand every word. "Elena is not helpless. She is not broken, and she is certainly not a burden. She is an internationally recognized artist who has accomplished more than most people dream of. She is intelligent, talented, and kind. The only thing broken here is the way your family has treated her." Victoria's eyes narrowed. "You do not know anything about our family. I know that you left her alone on Christmas Eve. I know that she sat in that mall for 2 hours waiting for people who never intended to come. I know that she was crying, and no one in your family cared enough to notice. So do not stand in my home and lecture me about what Elena needs." Movement from the hallway made everyone turn. Lily stood in her bedroom doorway, awakened by the commotion. Her small face was fierce with anger as she marched across the room and wrapped her arms protectively around Elena's waist. "She is not a burden." Lily's voice cracked with emotion. "She is the nicest person I have ever met. She taught me how to sign Merry Christmas, and she helped us decorate the tree, and she is wonderful. You are being really, really mean." Victoria looked down at the child with cold dismissal. "This is not your concern, little girl. Elena is coming home with me, now." But Daniel stepped forward, positioning himself between his daughter and Victoria. His hands continued to move as he spoke, ensuring Elena missed nothing. "Elena is an adult. She can decide for herself where she wants to be. And from what I have seen tonight, your family has done nothing but hurt her." He turned to sign directly to Elena. "What do you want? Do you want to leave with your sister? I will support whatever you choose." Elena's hands trembled as she raised them. For 27 years, she had been silent, not because she could not communicate, but because no one wanted to listen. She had swallowed her pain, hidden her anger, accepted the role of burden and embarrassment because fighting seemed pointless when no one was paying attention anyway. But tonight, everything had changed. Tonight, a stranger had crossed a crowded food court to speak to her in her own language. A 7-year-old girl had learned to sign just to say hello. A man who had every reason to protect his own heart had opened his home to her without hesitation. Tonight she had been seen, truly seen, for the first time since she was 14 years old. She stood up slowly, moving until she was face to face with her sister, and she began to sign. Daniel translated, his voice steady and clear. "For my entire life, I believed I was a burden. Because of you, because of Mom and Dad, because of the way all of you looked at me like I was something broken that needed to be hidden away from polite company." Victoria's expression flickered, but Elena continued. "You locked me in a closet when I was 10 years old, during a thunderstorm. You held the door shut and laughed while I screamed. And when Mom finally found me, she was angry at me for making a fuss instead of angry at you for traumatizing me." The color drained from Victoria's face. "After I went deaf, everything got worse. You stopped talking to me, stopped including me in family conversations, Stop treating me like your sister. I became the family's shame, the embarrassment you mentioned in whispers when you thought I could not see. Elena's hands move faster now, powered by 13 years of suppressed pain finally finding release. But I was always watching. I read your lips through doorways. I saw every eye roll, every heavy sigh, every time you looked at me like I was a burden you wished you could set down. She paused, took a breath, felt the weight of what she was about to say. Tonight I met people who looked at me and saw a person worth knowing, worth helping, worth caring about. Not despite my deafness, because of who I am as a complete human being. She gestured to Daniel, to Lily still clinging to her waist. I choose them. I choose to stay where I am wanted. For the first time in my entire life, Victoria, I am choosing myself. Silence filled the room. Victoria stood frozen, her perfectly maintained composure cracking like ice under pressure. Her manicured hands trembled at her sides. Something shifted in her expression. Pain, maybe, or the beginning of recognition. You think... Victoria's voice emerged barely above a whisper. Elena read her lips with the same precision she had used to survive a lifetime of exclusion. You think it was easy for me, watching you disappear into silence? Watching Mom and Dad give up piece by piece? I was 12 years old, Elena. I did not know how to help you. I did not know how to reach you anymore. So I stopped trying because trying hurt too much. Elena stared at her sister. This was not an apology. It was not even close to an apology. But it was more honesty than Victoria had offered in 13 years. Then learn now, Elena signed, and Daniel translated. I am still here. I have always been here. It is not too late to try. Victoria's eyes glistened with something that might have been tears. For one long, suspended moment, the sisters looked at each other across all the years of silence and accumulated hurt. Two people who had once shared a bedroom, shared secrets, shared a childhood, separated now by walls neither of them had meant to build. Then Victoria turned away, walked toward the door. She could not do it, not yet, maybe not ever. But at the threshold, she paused without turning around. I hope you find what you are looking for, Elena. I really do. The door closed behind her, not slammed, just closed. A quiet ending to a confrontation that had been building for more than a decade. In the silence that followed, Elena's knees finally buckled. Daniel caught her elbow gently, guided her to the couch, sat beside her without speaking or signing, just being there, a solid, quiet presence. Lily climbed up on her other side, small and warm and fierce. You were so brave, the little girl whispered, even though she knew Elena could not hear. You are the bravest person I ever met. Elena did not know if that was true, but she knew she had done something she had never done before. She had spoken her truth, and someone had listened. Elena slept on the couch that night, wrapped in blankets that smelled like cinnamon and home. She lay awake for a long time, watching the Christmas tree lights cast gentle shadows on the unfamiliar ceiling. The silence felt different here. Not lonely, not isolating, not a prison she was trapped in. Just peaceful, just quiet, just safe. Lily was the first one awake on Christmas morning, as children always are. She crept into the living room with exaggerated stealth and found Elena already sitting up, watching the snow fall past the window in fat, lazy flakes. The storm had passed during the night, leaving the city blanketed in white, clean, pristine, new. The little girl carried a small package wrapped in crinkled paper with a crooked bow, clearly the work of small hands without adult supervision. For you, Lily whispered, holding it out like a treasure. Elena took the gift with careful hands, peeled back the paper slowly, savoring the moment. Inside was a pair of knitted gloves, cream-colored, soft, slightly uneven in places where the stitches had been dropped or pulled too tight. The beautiful imperfection of something made with love by someone still learning. Lily signed slowly, her movements careful and earnest. I made them myself, so your hands do not get cold when you talk. Elena stared at the gloves. Such a simple gift, such a simple, profound thought. This 7-year-old girl understood something Elena's own family had never grasped in 13 years, that Elena's hands were her voice, That keeping them warm meant keeping her ability to communicate with the world. That caring for her meant caring for the way she connected with the people around her. The gloves fit perfectly. Elena pulled Lily into her arms and held her tight, feeling the small body relax against her chest. Warmth spilled down her cheeks, tears but not sad ones, not lonely ones. These were tears of something she had almost forgotten how to feel. Joy, pure and simple and overwhelming. Daniel appeared in the doorway, holding 3 mugs, his hair still messy from sleep. He smiled when he saw them embracing, a smile that reached his eyes and transformed his whole face. He set the mugs down and sat on the edge of the couch, close but not intruding. Then he picked up the notepad and wrote, "I know we just met. I know this is fast and probably overwhelming, but if you need a place to stay while you figure things out, you are welcome here, for as long as you need. No pressure, no expectations. Just a safe place and people who care about you." Elena read his words 3 times, making sure they were real, making sure this was not a dream she would wake from alone. But the gloves on her hands were real. The little girl pressed against her side was real. The man looking at her with gentle sincerity was real. She picked up the pen. Her hand was steady despite the tears still drying on her cheeks. She wrote 3 words. "I want to stay." Daniel's smile grew wider. Lily squealed with pure delight and threw her arms around Elena's neck again. 3 people who had been complete strangers less than 24 hours ago. Now something that felt remarkably, wonderfully, impossibly like a family. They spent Christmas Day together. They ate breakfast, scrambled eggs slightly overcooked, and toast slightly burned. But somehow the best meal Elena had ever tasted. They opened small gifts, nothing expensive, but chosen with thought and wrapped with care. They played board games that Lily always seemed to win. They watched holiday movies on the old television, Lily providing enthusiastic commentary that Daniel translated into sign. They simply existed in the same space, together. In the evening, when Lily fell asleep, curled between them on the couch, Daniel and Elena looked at each other over her small blonde head. Something had shifted between them. Not romance, not yet, but the foundation of something that could grow into more. The recognition of 2 wounded people who had found in each other proof that they were not as broken as they had believed. Daniel reached over and took Elena's hand. She held on like he was the only solid thing in a world that had been uncertain for so long. Outside, the snow had stopped falling. The city lay quiet and still beneath its white blanket. Stars were emerging in the clearing sky. And Elena Mercer, who had spent 13 years believing she was broken, believing she was a burden, believing she would always be alone, felt something she had almost forgotten existed. She felt like she belonged. She felt like she had finally, after all this time, come home. If you are sitting alone somewhere tonight, I want you to know something. You are not invisible. You are not a burden. You are not too broken to be loved. And somewhere out there, someone is waiting to reach out their hand and say, in whatever language you understand, come home with us. You do not have to be alone anymore.